Hi everyone, welcome to Family Forge. I'm Clara, this is my dad Ned, and we're very excited to be starting this YouTube channel where I learn how to blacksmith from my dad. He's been blacksmithing his entire career and I haven't blacksmithed at all. So I hope you come along with us on this journey and see how it turns out. I'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button so we can get this channel up and running. So let's start with what interested you in blacksmithing, how you got started, and about your career.
Well, I guess it was in high school that I first became interested in metalworking in general, just because it seemed so kind of mysterious and magical. Where did all these metals come from, and how did we, as humans, sort of discover metal and how to refine it and how to go from ore to metal, and then how to make all these amazing products. So I guess I first started dabbling with some jewelry and silver soldering through a fellow student in high school, and then took some metalworking classes at an adult education school, and then went on to art school where jewelry and hollowware was about all there was for metalworking, and the hollowware aspect of it was interesting in that forming a vessel from a sheet of metal, how did they do that? And I wanted to try to see if I could learn some of these techniques. And from there I got a little bit discouraged with the art school after a semester, because in the early 1970s, art school was all about originality and kind of to stand out from any other student and get any kind of credit, you had to be unique and different and off the wall, and I wasn't interested in originality. I was interested in mastering skills, and I still feel that even if you want to take something in a unique and interesting direction, it's still important to master the skills first and then apply them to what you want to do. That's sort of what I want to do in teaching Clara. I want to start with the basics and try to practice those basic skills so that we can get, and the viewers coming along can also learn to hone the basic skills to the point where it becomes automatic pilot, and then we'll take on more and more complicated projects after we work on some basic techniques.
Hi Heidi girl. Yeah, you want to come say hi?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess I never mentioned where I learned the basics, and I guess after my frustration with art school, and even the instructors had no technical skills, and if I was ever going to learn how historical work in metal was done, the idea that these living history museums, like living in Massachusetts, I had been to Old Sturbridge Village as a child, and on school trips I knew they had a blacksmith shop, and I went and applied to see if I could get a job working there. Turns out they didn't need anybody in the blacksmith shop, but they did need somebody in the tin shop. And eventually, when an opening came in, I got 2 days a week in the blacksmith shop, and that's where I learned, starting with nails and moving on to hooks, and then pieces like boot scrapers for scraping your muddy boots, then some fireplace tools, and back in those days all the cooking was done open hearth cooking in front of a fire, and one of the products that we made was a toaster. You could slide your 2 pieces of bread into a rack and set it down in front of the fire until one side of the bread was toasted, and then you could just swivel it around with your toe. That was the first elaborate project that I did. Working in front of people, visitors were coming through in large numbers, and they were all so interested in what we were doing, and some were even interested in wanting to know if you did any work on the outside, historic crafts were very popular in the 1970s and 80s, and there were a lot of people restoring houses, and it began to dawn on me that rather than just talk about how people used to do it in the past, that maybe it would still be possible to do it in the present. And so I left Sturbridge and moved home and rented a shop space and started collecting tools and making products and trying to sell them at craft shows. You didn't have the captive audience on your own that was going through Sturbridge Village, so trying to connect with the people that wanted the stuff you were making wasn't an easy process. But doing the craft shows did put me in contact with some architects that were that I met through the craft shows, and word of mouth and one thing or another, it all started to shift to doing more and more work for architects and doing larger pieces, gates and railings and fences, that kind of thing. And that grew to the point where I didn't need to do the craft shows anymore. But in some ways, that also separated me from some of the work that I really enjoyed. The challenge became how to pull off these, 100 feet of balcony railing. I took my the jewelry and hollowware techniques that I had learned and the tinsmithing techniques, and started applying those to making some copper lanterns. The architectural products that I was making included the lighting fixtures, mostly exterior, but some interior lighting fixtures as well, and some chandeliers. Though the work I did for architects didn't include much in the way of hardware, I never stopped doing the restoration, old home restoration hardware, where I would either repair old hardware or make reproduction hinges and door latches for historic houses. One of my favorite products is the challenges in forging the thumb latches and strap hinges. The 1990s were sort of the peak years of production for me, and then all the larger jobs started being outsourced. That slowed down the work for me to a more comfortable level, but I was still pretty tired of all the deadlines and the repetition of 20 years or more of doing that kind of work. So eventually, after 2008, work dried up, and I was looking around for something that I could do, and thinking more in terms of what kind of product I could make. And instead of having custom work and deadlines, could I just make some product and market it myself? And that's where I came upon, developed a line of handmade garden tools that I sold through Etsy and through craft shows. So I kind of went back to the craft shows again, and with my wife being able to handle the online aspect of the sales, I spent the last decade or so working on this line of garden tools. Maybe we've both got a little burnt out with the last decade's work and are ready to move on to try something else and kind of turn the page and start a new chapter.
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. So I've always been interested in creating things, making things, all sorts of different things like painting, drawing, photography. I've done some ceramics, a little bit of glass blowing, a lot of knitting, sewing, design work, all sorts of things. So I really appreciate the skill that goes into all of those things, and I just love learning new skills, so I'm excited to start this. I majored in studio art in college, focusing on like painting and photography and graphic design, And then I got a job out of college as a product photographer at an online fabric store, appropriately named Online Fabric Store. And then I became creative director eventually with that. We started a YouTube channel, which was sewing tutorials and all sorts of projects just related to fabric. And that was, being in front of the camera was very hard for me because I'm just a shy, quiet person naturally. So it was gave me a lot of anxiety, but I came to really enjoy it, and I think it really helped out with my confidence overall. Just building my confidence, seeing the channel grow, having millions of views on videos. It's really cool. And so I really appreciated having that opportunity. And I stayed at that company for 11 years. It was a great job, but I've just been feeling like I just need to do something for myself. So I grew up with your shop on our property, and I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention, like you don't really think your parents' job is cool until like later on in life. It's what they do. I did, I think, like a couple times help out with some soldering and bending metal, just be an extra hand, but I didn't really pay a whole lot of attention to what you were doing. But now, now I have definitely come to appreciate it and realize that it really lines up with what I want to do as well. One
of the things that interests me about Clara starting this YouTube channel and having me teach her blacksmithing is that it gives me a chance to sort of pass on something that I've spent a lifetime learning, and rather than spending my whole life learning to do this stuff and building up the whole shop and infrastructure to do it, and tackling these various jobs over the years, and only to turn around and to have to dismantle it. And this is a chance to try to do something with the shop and knowledge, that maybe to pass it on to Clara and anybody out there that's interested. Yeah, so to get into a little bit how I came up with this idea for the channel. So just hearing you talk about that, you definitely weren't trying to suggest anything to me, but it just got me thinking, well, why can't I try blacksmithing? I think just because of the cultural stereotypes of, gender stereotypes, it just hadn't occurred to me. So you were at that point kind of semi-retired and a little bit burnt out on making garden tools. I was a little bit burnt out at my job. We've both been doing that for a long time. So with those two things coinciding, and then I had this idea, well, we can do a YouTube channel. I have all this experience doing YouTube, and you have all this experience in doing blacksmithing, so why don't we combine the two? And I became very excited about this idea and realized it would kind of be, it would be good for both of us. And I love the idea of parents passing down their skills to their children. And so it just all sort of clicked together, and yeah, now we're doing it. Yeah. And not only can I teach you what I know, I can also serve the purpose of anybody else out there that wants to learn, can kind of learn along with you, and so it's passing the skills on to more than just you.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I bought my first house when I was 23, and it's an old house. Just love old houses. And I was doing a lot of DIY work to fix it up, and you helped me out a lot as doing that stuff. We totally redid the kitchen in that house.
Gutted the whole kitchen. Yeah.
You could see the basement through the floor, and the tub through the ceiling above. So we did a tin ceiling, which I've noticed in a lot of other houses in that area. I tiled the floor, put together cabinets, did the backsplash. Really, really loved that kitchen. And then I, with my now husband, bought a new house, a new old house. The previous owners had done a big renovation in 1990 and unfortunately took out a lot of the, nice historical character of the house. So been working on sort of bringing that back in. So right now we're working on the floor in the upstairs bedroom that we were going to put in a new hardwood floor, and then discovered that under the plywood there was the original pine floor. You sanded that. I filled all the holes with wood filler and gave it a final sanding. And when I get home today, I'm actually going to do a test swatch on the floor, and so hopefully it will be finished soon. So I know we work well together. We've done a lot of projects together. So like you were saying, we're gonna start with some very basic projects like making nails, making hooks, that sort of thing. Start where you started. Yeah,
I'm emphasizing the drawing out a point and just practicing some of that over and over again till it gets really comfortable and automatic.
Yeah, then we'll probably do some other of the historical sort of projects that that you started off with, just progressing, getting more and more complex. And once I feel comfortable with the basics, I want to do some projects for my house, like some hardware, plant stands, all sorts of things. So have a lot of plans for that, but we'll get into that eventually. And I do want to, besides blacksmithing, I would like to do some other metal work as well. Like you've done a lot of lighting fixture type stuff.
Sheet metal.
With sheet metal.
Yeah.
So I'd want to bring that in too eventually. Neither of us are like all that interested in bladesmithing. I know that's very popular on YouTube, but there's a lot of great YouTubers out there doing a lot of amazing bladesmithing. So I don't feel like we necessarily need to go that direction. I'm kind of interested in doing a chef's knife or paring knife, that sort of thing. Nice practical knives. I find Damascus very beautiful and very interesting, all the patterns you can make. So maybe again, far down the road, we'll get to maybe trying to make some other things out of Damascus other than knives.
We'd have to learn that together.
Yeah, right, exactly. So it'd be fun. It would be fun to learn new stuff together too. Right. So whenever I tell someone that like my dad's a blacksmith, it's usually, oh, does he make swords?
Right. Yeah. I've never made Damascus steel. I've never made a sword, and I was all more interested in ornamental, decorative, utilitarian, sort of practical. Not that swords aren't
well, not too practical nowadays, anyway.
More plowshares than swords was more my direction.
So I've been watching a lot of blacksmithing YouTube videos in preparation for this. So I do have a fair bit of knowledge coming into this, but of course, watching and doing, two different things. Yeah. So in the next video, I will actually try blacksmithing. So be sure to like this video, subscribe to our channel, hit that bell button if you want to get a notification, and leave a comment if you have an idea for a project you want to see us make. So we'll see you in the next one. Bye.